समनुपश्यति रूपं शून्यता शून्यतैव रूपम् रूपान् पृथक् शून्यता शून्यताया न पृथक् रूपम् यद्रूपं सा शून्यता या शून्यता तद्रूपम् एवं वेदना संज्ञा संस्कार विज्ञानानि च शून्यता एवं शारिपुत्र सर्वधर्मः शून्यता लक्षणा अनुत्पन्ना अनिरुद्धा आमला न विमला अनूना असम्पूर्णा तस्मात् तर्हि शारिपुत्रः शून्यतायां न रूपं न वेदना न संज्ञा न संस्कारः न विज्ञानम् न चक्षुर्न श्रोत्रं न घ्राणं न जीवा न कायो न मनो न रूपं न शब्दो न गन्धो न रसो न स्पृष्टव्यं न धर्मः न चक्षुर्धातुर्यावन्न मनोधातुर्न धर्मधातुर्न मनोविज्ञानधातुः न विद्या न विद्या न शय्यो यावन्न जरामरणं न जरामरणशय्यः न दुःखसमुदयनिरोधमार्गः न ज्ञानं न प्राप्तिर्न प्राप्तिः तस्माच्छारिपुत्रः अप्राप्तित्वेन बोधिसत्त्वानां प्रज्ञापारमितामाश्रित्य विहरति चित्तावरिणः।
Uh, Tashidele, everyone. A very warm welcome to each and every one of you. And I would like to convey my sincere regards to all the participants of the Nalanda Master Course. Now, with this, I would like to request Archana ji to to kindly lead the prayers. We'll do in praise to Shakyamuni Buddha, and I'll do the screen sharing. Thank you very much, each and every one of you.
Welcome everyone. There's some echo actually. Should I go ahead?
Kongala, you'll have to mute yourself. Kongala, if you mute yourself, the echo will go away. Yeah, go ahead, Archana. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome everyone. Let's begin by setting up proper motivation, which consists of 3 parts. While being mindful of both aspects, the object being visualized and the manner in which you visualize it. First, visualize the refuge field in the space in front of you. Visualize Buddha Shakyamuni, His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, and all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, or any other enlightened beings you regard with veneration. They are looking upon you with immense kindness and unconditional love, just as a mother looks upon her only child. Next, visualize the bodhicitta field. Visualize seated on either side of you your kind parents, mother on the left and father on the right. Additionally, you are accompanied by all other dear mother sentient beings, leaving none aside, and you are leading them in this practice. Finally, recall the purpose of the practice, which is to manifest the Buddha nature within you, which is the ultimate source of happiness, by removing the 2 mental obscurations. Afflictive obscurations, consisting of afflictions of negative emotions, contaminated karmas, and their corresponding active seeds. And cognitive obscurations, the subtle stains, that is, the inactive latencies of the afflictions and contaminated karmas. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the Immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha Gautama, I pay homage. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the Immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha Gautama, I pay homage. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the Immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha Gautama, I pay homage. Taking refuge and generating bodhicitta. Sangye chodang soki chonam la janchu bardu dagni kyapsuchi dagi jinso gipe soknam ki drula penchir sangye drupa shog. Sangye chodang soki chonam la janchu bardu dagni kyapsuchi dagi jinso gipe soknam ki drula penchir sangye drupa shog. Sangye chodang soki chonam la janchu bardu dagni kyapsuchi dagi jinso gipe sognam ki drula penchir sangye drupa shok. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dhamma and the Sangha. By my accumulations of the practice of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dhamma and the Sangha. By my accumulations of the practice of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dhamma and the Sangha. By my accumulations of the practice of giving and so forth, May I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. In dependent origination, there is no ceasing, no rising, no annihilation, no permanence, no coming, no going, no separateness, and no sameness. I prostrate to the consummate Buddha, the supreme among all teachers, the one who taught this peace which is freed of elaborations. I prostrate to the mothers of the hearers, the Bodhisattvas and the Buddhas, which through the knowledge of all lead hearers seeking pacification to complete peace, which through the knowledge of paths causes those helping migrators to achieve the aims of the world, and through the possession of which helps subduers expound a variety of teachings. The one who has transformed into the reliable guide, motivated by altruism to benefit sentient beings, the teacher, Sugata, and protector, to you I make prostrations. The one who has eliminated the web of conceptualizations and is endowed with the divine bodies of the vast and the profound, who eternally shines forth the forever noble light rays, to you, the Buddha, I make prostrations. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind of full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. The essence of dependent origination mantra will recite along with Venerable Geshe-la's recording.
Om ye dharma hetu prabhava hetum tesham tathagato yavatat tesham chayo nirodha evam vati mahashramanaye swaha. Om ye dharma hetu prabhava hetum tesham tathagato yavatat tesham chayo nirodha evam vati mahashramanaye swaha. Om ye dharma hetu prabhava hetum tesham tathagato yavatat tesham chayo nirodha evam vati mahashramanaye swaha.
Meaning of the Tendril Ningpo mantra: all phenomena arise from causes. The causes are taught by the Tathagata. The cessation of the causes as well is taught by the great seer. Profound, peaceful, elaboration-free, clear light and non-composite. Such is the nectar-like dharma I have discovered. Finding no one to fathom this teaching, in silence I will retire into the woods. Beyond utterance, thought and expression is the perfection of wisdom, which is unborn, unceased, and has the nature of space. It is the object of apprehension of self-realized wisdom. To you, the mother of the Buddhas of the 3 times, I pay obeisance. The 4 seals of Buddha's teachings. All composite things are impermanent. All contaminated things are of the nature of suffering. All phenomena are of the nature of emptiness and selflessness. Transcending sorrow is peace. The Guru is the Buddha, the Guru is the Dharma, likewise the Guru is the Sangha. The Guru is the source of everything wholesome. I go for refuge in the Guru. By the sound of the vibrant drum of Dharma, you liberate all beings of miseries. I beseech you to kindly remain and give teachings until the end of the expanse of billions of eons. The Buddha does not wash the negativities of beings, nor does he remove their miseries by his hands. His spiritual realizations are not transferred to them. It is by teaching the truth of suchness that beings are liberated. With folded hands, I beseech the Buddhas of all directions to shine the light of Dharma for all bewildered in misery's gloom. Instructions on parting from the four attachments. If you're attached to this life, you're not a spiritual practitioner. If you're attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you're attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If there is grasping, you do not have the view. Praise to Shakyamuni Buddha. To the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When, O supreme amongst humans, you were born on this earth, you paced out 7 strides, then said, I am supreme in this world. To you who were wise then, I prostrate. With pure bodies, form supremely pure, wisdom ocean, like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, Lord, to you I prostrate. With the supreme signs, face like a spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. Dust free like you, the 3 worlds are not. Incomparable wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the Founder having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you the Tathagata I prostrate. The purity that frees one from attachment, the virtue that frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime pure reality, to the Dharma that pacifies I prostrate. Those who are liberated and also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you the Sangha I prostrate. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions, subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a visual aberration, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through these merits, may sentient beings attain the rank of all-seeing, subdue the foe of faults, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. Now we'll recite the Heart Sutra mantra 7 times along with Venerable Geshe-la's recording.
Teatha Om Gati Gati Paragati Parasamgati Bodhi Swaha Teatha Om Gati Gati Paragati Parasamgati Bodhi Swaha Tyata Om Gati Gati Paragati Parasamgate bodhisvaha tyatha Om gate gate paragate 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 Parasamgate bodhisvaha.
Arjuna ji, I would like to humbly request you, shall we recite the 37 practices of Bodhisattva?
Okay.
Thank you so much.
"37 Practices of a Bodhisattva" by Gyaltse Togme Sangpo. Namo Lokeshwaraya. You see that all phenomena neither come nor go. Still you strive solely for the benefit of beings. Supreme Guru and Protector Avalokiteshvara, to you I continually bow with body, speech and mind. The perfect Buddhas, the source of benefit and happiness, arise from practicing the genuine Dharma, which in turn depends on knowing how to practice. So I will explain the Bodhisattva practices. Now that you have obtained this precious human birth, the great boat so difficult to find, in order to free yourself and others from the ocean of samsara, listening, reflecting, and meditating with diligence, day and night, is the practice of a bodhisattva. Passion towards friends churns like water, hatred towards enemies burns like fire. Through the darkness of ignorance, one forgets what to adopt and what to reject. To abandon one's homeland is the practice of a bodhisattva. Giving up inhospitable places, mental afflictions gradually decrease. With no distractions, virtuous activities naturally increase. When mind becomes clear, conviction in the Dharma is born. Therefore, seeking solitude is the practice of a bodhisattva. Friends and relatives acquainted for long will separate. Possessions gained with exertion will be left behind. Consciousness, a guest, will leave the guest house of the body. To let go of this life is the practice of a bodhisattva. When, due to friendship with someone, the three poisons increase, degrading the activities of listening, reflecting, and meditating, and destroys loving kindness and compassion, to give up such a friendship is the practice of a bodhisattva. When relying on someone, your negativities diminish and your positive qualities grow like a waxing moon. To cherish such a spiritual friend more than your own body is the practice of a bodhisattva. Themselves captives in the prison of samsara, whom can the worldly gods protect? Therefore, to seek refuge in the three jewels, who do not betray you, is the practice of a bodhisattva. The suffering of the lower realms, so difficult to bear, is what the Buddha taught to be the fruit of negative actions. Therefore, even at the cost of your life, never to commit negative actions is the practice of a bodhisattva. Happiness in the three realms, like dew on a blade of grass, is subject to instantaneous fading away. To strive for the supreme state of liberation that never wavers is the practice of a bodhisattva. From beginningless time, your mothers have cherished you. If they suffer now, what good is your own happiness? Therefore, in order to liberate an infinite number of sentient beings, cultivating bodhicitta is the practice of a bodhisattva. All suffering comes from yearning for your own happiness. The perfect Buddhas are born from the intention to benefit others. Therefore, to truly exchange your own happiness for the suffering of others is the practice of a bodhisattva. Even if someone driven by excessive desire steals all your wealth or incites someone else to steal it, to dedicate to this person your body, possessions, and all your virtues of the three times is the practice of a bodhisattva. If someone cuts off your head, even when you have not done the slightest wrong, through the power of compassion, to take their misdeeds upon yourself is the practice of a bodhisattva. Should someone slander you and proclaim it in a billion words, in return with a loving heart, to proclaim their good qualities is the practice of a bodhisattva. If in the midst of a crowd someone exposes your hidden faults and abuses you for them, to bow to them with respect, seeing them as a spiritual friend, is the practice of a bodhisattva. If someone whom you cherish as dearly as your own child takes you for an enemy, then, like a mother who loves a sick child, to love that person even more is the practice of a bodhisattva. Even when someone who is your equal or inferior, driven by arrogance, seeks to disparage you, to place them on the crown of your head, with the same respect as you would accord your guru, is the practice of a bodhisattva. Though gripped by acute poverty and constantly scorned by others, stricken by terrible illness and possessed by evil spirits, to take upon yourself the negativities and sufferings of every being and never to get discouraged is the practice of a bodhisattva. Though you may be famous and prominent, someone to whom others bow, though you amass riches like that of the god of wealth, to see that worldly splendor has no essence, and thus to be without arrogance is the practice of a bodhisattva. If you have not pacified the enemy of your own anger, combating outer opponents will only make them multiply. Therefore, with the army of loving kindness and compassion, to tame your own mind is the practice of a bodhisattva. Sensual pleasures are like salt water. The more you partake of them, the more your craving will increase. Therefore, when someone arouses attachment, to abandon it immediately is the practice of a bodhisattva. All appearances are your own mind, and mind itself primordially transcends all mental fabrications. Knowing this, and to remain free from apprehending the science of subject and object, is the practice of a bodhisattva. When you encounter objects that please your mind, like rainbows in the summer season, though they seem beautiful, not to view them as real and to give up attachment to them is the practice of a bodhisattva. All suffering is like the death of your child in a dream. To take such delusive appearances as true, how exhausting. Therefore, whenever you encounter unpleasant circumstances, to see them as deceptions is the practice of a bodhisattva. If those who aspire to enlightenment willingly give up their bodies, what need is there to mention material objects? Therefore, with no hope of reward or benefit, to give with generosity is the practice of a bodhisattva. If lack of discipline prevents you from benefiting yourself, then your wish to benefit others is just a joke. Therefore, to observe discipline with no longing for worldly existence is the practice of a bodhisattva. For a bodhisattva who seeks a wealth of virtue, every perpetrator of harm is like a precious treasure. Therefore, without feeling irritation towards any, to cultivate patience is the practice of a bodhisattva. We'll continue next time.
Okay, thank you, Dinshugela. Thank you, Archanaji. Thank you, Kungala, Kamala. As indicated by Archanaji, let us do the visualization of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the space in front of us as so loving, caring, and embracing. And for Bodhicitta, feel visualize your two grandparents and all your family members, including children, and all other dear sentient beings living them aside. And here, you are like the mother, and all others are like children. With the desire to awaken the seed of perfection within us. While this seed is so precious, the Buddha nature is so precious, and the manifestation which will make you so fearless, make you be freed from all forms of vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities, say, in the desire realm, the sensual desires, vulnerabilities in the form realm, are the vulnerabilities to once you have the, say, inner feelings, very subtle, the calm, peaceful feelings of the meditative experiences, and then the vulnerabilities of the formless, which is purely of the neutral feeling, and it's much more calm and cognitively and effectively both. They're so calm. So these vulnerabilities, and then from the point of view of the cognitive, particularly the subtlest of the cognitive vulnerability, is the believing in things as object real. And then, even subtler, is the perception, our appearance of things as object real. That is the vulnerabilities. So these vulnerabilities, they don't really represent our true nature of mind. Our true nature of mind is extremely powerful. For all these vulnerabilities, where the beings are trapped. So these vulnerabilities for them, in the face of this awakening of the true nature of one's mind. These are all like seen like a small children's game, small children's jokes. So while this being the reality, our vulnerability is such that in the eyes, looking at things from our vulnerabilities, we don't see things as like a joke, things as like, like a petty, small things that are seen as so are the of greatest significance, without which is though like we are deprived of something. This is the indication of our being the being trapped in the vulnerabilities like small children. So, but this does not reflect your true nature. Your true nature is way beyond this. So for this matter, the how can we realize this is not through believing in somebody, believing in this, but the study what these great masters taught, study them, and subject them to analysis. Don't follow blindly. Subject them to analysis, and then come to realize. Once you come to realize, even on a cursory form, that the is a vulnerability. For some people, I see that in dharma, yes, somehow the seed of dharma is activated and the person go into dharma, but still in the dharma there's a flow of the desire for power, desire for wealth, desire for status, and so forth. It's very unfortunate. These are not our realities. These are the vulnerabilities. And yet, the first thing is that we need to identify these vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities in general. And then number two are vulnerabilities which are very specific to yourself. For example, what are the areas where comparing yourself with other people? Sometimes the comparison can be very good, and sometimes it can be destructive. Destructive meaning that when you compare with other people, when you see that you don't really are in par with other people, you feel so demoralized, sad, and low. This is bad comparison. You compare with other people, and you discover your vulnerabilities, your weaknesses. These are so precious. This is something which we are encouraged to do. Compare, and then you discover your vulnerabilities. As I said earlier, on a very gross level, vulnerabilities include like, I say, the coming into dharma. If not in dharma, it's a different story. Not in dharma, meaning that the one appreciates these vulnerabilities, meaning that you see these vulnerabilities in real sense, which are actually vulnerabilities. You see them as the success, mark of success. That's a different story. For those people who are looking for something more meaningful in the next life, next life, and then away from samsara, then away from the cognitive, the illusion of seeing things as things appearing as subjective real, where the true nature of mind becomes manifest. From that point of view, looking from the lens of this very sophisticated version of your advancement, then that is the dharma. So once you go to dharma and still be imbued with the spirit of the vulnerabilities, like very gross ones, like attachment for wealth, for power, and for sensual desires, and so forth, and status, and so forth. Of course, voluntarily chasing after this is something which is not really healthy for us. And then number one. Number two, that even though you may not be voluntarily going after these, but then somehow you might be being pulled by these discoveries. First, we need to make the discoveries. Once you discover that, and then they see what are the very general vulnerabilities, then the specific vulnerabilities which are specific to yourself. And then on that basis, to see how the true nature of mind is. And your mind, when the true nature manifests, how all these vulnerabilities are seen as very petty things, trivialities. You see them as trivial things. And on this basis, then see how do you dedicate time to get over these. Getting over, of course, there are many ways of doing it. First, it's not that easy. The vulnerabilities, they're extremely powerful. We suffer from these in the form of chronic disease since many lifetimes. But until we get away from these, that there's no way that the real dharma will happen, and that we can be freed from the pains of samsara. And the pains of samsara, if you think of them carefully, is extremely scary and extremely painful. And so reflect on these. So what we call as the lumbering practice, or to put it very short, I say the foundation for all good qualities as presented here. Then we see that if we can reflect on these points on a daily basis, and sometimes when you're free, you can sit for some retreat, like 2-day retreat, 3-day retreat. And if you can get like 10 days, it's amazing. Retreat exclusively to think about these complete stories and to see your vulnerabilities inside, vulnerabilities of other beings, and then to see the bigger picture. So once you discover this, and then say the first learn and then reflect and get conviction. Once you're convinced, then try to look for time to reflect more so that one grows in these reflections. Okay, so having said this, let us invoke the spirit that may I manifest the true nature within myself, true nature of my mind, fully, that I be free from all the vulnerabilities, as we're going to be, as this the Acharya Chittamatra philosophy 10 system is going to become towards the end of it. It talks about the two kayas, your two potentials. The two true potentials of yours, the ultimate potential, ultimate goodness for yourself, and ultimate goodness for others. So these two potentials of the ultimate goodnesses are within us. So with this in the mind, let us learn how to build a sense of willpower, how to build a sense of resilience, the sense of resilience and sense of willpower against our vulnerabilities. Okay, with this in mind, let us invoke the spirit. Take a few seconds and invoke the spirit that may I soon awaken, the first discover the true potential within myself, where where I'm no more the victim of these vulnerabilities, that the potentials be awakened for the benefit of myself and for the benefit of all the beings. Okay, with this in mind, and these realizations should happen concomitantly with the love and affection for all the beings, where the love and affection without expectation, that's the key. Sometimes love and affection is there with expectation. Without expectation, where the mother feels towards the young, the toddler child. So with this in mind, let us they say this line together, the Bodhicitta line together. May I become Buddha for the benefit of all my dear mother sentient beings. May I become Buddha for the benefit of all my dear mother sentient beings. May I become Buddha for the benefit of all my dear mother sentient beings. Okay, there are so many ways by which to awaken the seed of perfection within us and how to stay away from the vulnerabilities. And of course, one is the being consistent with whatever little practice that we do. For example, like taking this aspiration Bodhisattva vow. So these, if you're being very consistent, and this will have its own benefit. And then in combination with the factors, one of the most important thing of which is the study, constant studies. And then when you go out, say, be aware of the vulnerabilities, and then try to stay away the manner in which Geshe Tome Sambo, the author of the 37 Practices of Bodhisattva, he taught. In fact, 37 Practices of Bodhisattva, this is extremely good. If we can recite it on a daily basis, that'll be wonderful. This will be a great mirror for each one of us. We have limitations, yes. We have drawbacks. We have our vulnerabilities, and these will tell us, show the surface mirror, and then the studying, the Nalanda the legacies of the Narada Masters, they will give you a extremely profound cognitive, to fix our cognitive errors. And then meanwhile here, in terms of how to apply this, the transformation, cognitive transformation, application into the affective transformation, transforming the feelings, transforming the intention to move effectively. For this, there's a Thomas Sambos 37 practices and the 8 verses, the 7-point mind training, and so forth. They're very helpful. Okay, so with this in mind, you'll be able to recite the following verses together. I go for refuge to the triple chair. I confess the negativities individually. I rejoice in the virtues of all the beings. I hold the precious Buddhahood in my heart. I go for refuge to the triple chair. I confess the negativities individually. I rejoice in the virtues of all the beings. I hold the precious Buddhahood in my heart. I go for refuge to the triple gem. I confess the negativities individually. I rejoice in the virtues of all the beings. I hold the precious Buddhahood in my heart. Gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas, please pay heed to me. Just as the previous Buddhas have generated the mind of bodhicitta, and just as they successfully dwell in the bodhisattva practices, likewise for the benefit of all sentient beings, I will generate the mind of bodhicitta, and I shall too successfully dwell in the bodhisattva practices. Gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas, please pay heed to me. Just as the previous Buddhas the mind of bodhicitta, and just as they successfully dwell in the bodhisattva practices, likewise for the benefit of all sentient beings, I will generate the mind of bodhicitta, and allow shall too successfully train the bodhisattva practices. Gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas, please pay heed to me. Just as the previous Buddhas have generated the mind of bodhicitta, and just as they successfully dwell in the bodhisattva practices, likewise for the benefit of all sentient beings, I will generate the mind of bodhicitta, and allow shall too successfully train the bodhisattva practices. Okay. Last time we discussing on the three versions of emptiness, and according to Chittamatra. So, but we said is that these three versions. Okay, I'm just wondering if there is anybody who can share with us the three versions, what the three versions are. Three versions of emptiness according to Chittamatra. Anyone raise hands? Oh, no one. Huh? No. Okay. Shrivani ji.
Emptiness of externality of form, emptiness of substantial separatedness of the form, and the valid cognition apprehending the form, emptiness of the form being established as self-characterized adherent referent of the conceptual mind apprehending form.
Very good. Thank you. And oftentimes when I meet with some of the participants of the NMC, what they say is that I don't come with the camera because occasionally you ask questions. So we feel scared. So in fact, don't worry. I promise not to pinpoint to any one individual unless somebody raises your hands. Okay. So that's my promise. Don't worry. Thank you, Shivani ji. And Suresh ji.
Emptiness of externality, emptiness of substantial self, and emptiness of phenomena.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else who agree, disagree with what Shrivani ji said and what Suresh ji said? Anyone? Okay. Putu?
I agree with the Srivani ji, and I think the Suresh ji, I think there is one more point that he didn't mention, which is the emptiness of the object being the true label of the reference of the object.
Okay. So otherwise you agree with the number 2 and number 3 also, which Suresh ji said? Number 2, emptiness of substantial self.
Oh, sorry. Number 2 also. Yeah, I think slightly modification of the now. The first one I think is the emptiness of externality. Surajji correctly said that. The second one is slightly correction. I think yeah, the emptiness of the substantial separateness of the form and the mind cognizing the form.
Okay, thank you. So basically, there's so many classifications, divisions, and even with selflessness, again, there are so many divisions, classifications are there. So we need to know in what context these divisions are made or classifications are done. So this is what we need to keep in mind when we talk about the emptiness according to Chittamatra. So how many versions are there? In fact, there can be more. So what we learned thus far is 3. Number 1, okay, say the wordings put here in this text. This is so good, and so if possible, try to remember according to the wordings of the standard the text. So what the text said here, screen sharing, this Shugala. Okay, emptiness of substantial substantial separateness of form and the valid cognition of apprehending form. So here, when we learn, not only we just learn the words, we also need to you have to understand what is being said here. Let's say that let's say the flower. Okay, let's say the flower. The flower. So this is the flower. Let's say the flower. Let's say the flower. Flower is the object. So emptiness, separateness of form. Form here, the physical form, like the flower, the house, yourself, your body, or the trees, or whatever. Physical form, the flower, and the valid cognition, apprehending form. Say the flower is the object, and your subject, the valid cognition, your eye consciousness, the valid cognition, this as the subject perceiving the object. So there's object and subject interplay there. So these two, are they seen? How does it appear to our mind, our natural mind? The flower is there. Okay, just see if it makes sense to you. So this involves, say, I point to the flower, say, okay, this flower. Then now I move towards the subject. This is the subject, valid cognition, which perceives the flower. So I point to 2 different objects. So therefore, this is how the flower appears to exist as something which can be pointed to differently from where I can point to the subject which perceives the flower. How many agree with me? Raise hands. Very good. So because that the flower appears in this form, this is known as the flower appearing as external. This is the meaning of externality. This is how the flower appears as external. So now the answer, Chittamatra would say that this appearance is deceptive. First, appearance comes, deceptive appearance comes, and because of which the deceptive apprehension comes. We believe that the flower actually exists as an object to be identified or to be pointed to differently from where we point to the subject which perceives the flower. So this is how we believe things to be existing. This is known as our belief in externality. And Chittamatra would say that this belief in externality, this is a misconception. This is wrong. So there's no externality there. But then how can you deny this flower as external? It's there externally, and I came from outside. Now I'm inside the house. How can you deny these? So the point Chittamatra would say that yes, there's no externality there. We don't reject the flower. Chittamatra does not reject the flower. They do not reject the house and so forth. But what they reject is they reject the externalities. The externality is rejected. External things existing as external is rejected. This is what we keep in mind. So the first version, which you find presented here, emptiness of the substantial separateness. Okay, substantial separateness. Okay, since you're later on, substantial, what you put in bracket, this bracket can be removed because this is the original, the author's intention. The bracket can be removed. Just the word should be kept there, the substantial. Emptiness of a substantial separateness. Say the of form, and my mind, your value cognition apprehending the physical form. So these two are seen as substantially different, and that substantial, if it does exist as substantially different, substantially separate, then the flower should be external to the eye consciousness or the value cognition apprehending the flower. But in actuality, how it appears that it does not exist that way. It is deceptive in perceiving it that way and believing, apprehending it that way. So the emptiness, so that is being empty. Substantial separateness is not true. It is empty. Number one. So this, does it connote, does it give you any connotation that the flower does not exist externally? Okay, raise hands those to whom this first understanding gives you the understanding that that flower is empty of objective existence. Raise hands. No, external existence. This has connotation. The flower is empty of external existence. Very good. Okay. Next, number two. Number two, what we have here is that the emptiness of form, emptiness of emptiness of form being established. Okay, so the wordings are a little technical, and I cannot compromise too much with the wordings here because I was translating. I was not giving my own interpretation. I was translating the author's text, and I should be loyal to the author's the wordings, and also that the author is extremely realized and highly scholarly. We should not compromise the author's the words. Emptiness. So when you read this, see if you can understand this. The first, understand the meaning. Once you understand it, and then we can go deeper into the analysis. The first. Number two, emptiness of form being established as self-categorized, adherent, referent of the conceptual mind apprehending the form. Okay, let's say that first let's try to understand what is meant by these words. Emptiness of form being established as a self-categorized adherent referent meaning that when I say that, oh, I like to have a flower, so when I go to different places for teachings, then the people who are from NMC, NDC, and people who hosted the previous talks and the teachings, they would make sure that there's a flower there on the table. But many people who are new to this, they have no clue, so they don't keep a flower, and I'm struggling looking for a flower. So let's say I'm struggling to look for a flower. There's adherent there. There is some kind of say the wanting. Adherent here means adherent is the wanting, or like the affinity. Referent. Oh, I'm looking for a flower. I have the affinity to look for a flower. So affinity, this mind has affinity to a flower, looking for a flower, and not only is I'm looking for it, I've verbally said I refer to something. Adherent, referent. I refer to something. I want a flower. Is there a flower? So I use the label flower. So the flower becomes the referent of this label. And adherent is where my mind has affinity. With this label, the flower, the word that I use, I'm looking for something. I adhere to something. I have the affinity, looking for something. Adherent referent. What is that? The flower. Flower is the one. So the flower that I have in my hand, so that is the adherent referent of the label, the flower. Okay, how many understood this part? Raise hands. Just the meaning of the adherent label, adherent what? Adherent referent of the label flower. Raise hands. What's the meaning of this? You understood it. Adherent referent of the label flower. Okay, let's say that okay. So this is adherent label, adherent referent of the label flower. The next, but what it said here in the text is that adherent referent of the conceptual mind apprehending form, conceptual mind. So how many you, okay, think of a flower, all of you, think of a flower. Now tell me, how many you have a conceptual mind? What it says here is conceptual mind apprehending the form. How many of you now, right now, how many of you have the conceptual mind apprehending form? Raise hands. Okay. The good. So, is there anybody who likes to share with us what is that mind like? The mind which apprehends the conceptual mind, which apprehends form. What is that mind like? Is anyone? Just tell me what you think. What's that mind like? When I ask you to think of a flower, then my next question, that how many you have this mind and the apprehending the form, and you raise a hand. So what is that mind like? Raise hands, quick. Raise hand. Raise hands. Okay, Lianchu.
Imagine a flower.
Imagine a flower. Imagine a flower means you are giving an instruction, right? Imagine a flower.
Yes. To
Or
myself.
imagining a flower. Huh?
I imagine.
Imagining a flower.
I tell myself to
Imagining a
imagine the
flower.
flower.
Okay, so
I instruct myself to imagine the flower.
Okay, so my question is, what is that conceptual mind which apprehends the flower? This is my question. So imagining a flower. So Lianchu, are you conceptual mind?
My conceptual mind.
No, my question to Lianchu, are you imagining? Are you conceptual mind? Are you
No.
because you are also imagining
Yeah.
a flower. Okay, anyone else? Raise hands. Anyone else? Okay, okay, Neda, you like to say something? Neda, Neha, you like to say something? Okay, you need to unmute. Okay, good, unmute it. Now tell me.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I didn't really understand the question, Geshla.
My question is, the two questions. The first one you all understood. First question is, just think of a flower. Then the second question is, how many you have the conceptual mind? They thinking of a form. Conceptual mind apprehending form. And almost all of you raise your hands. My next question is, what is that thing? What is that conceptual mind apprehending form? This is my question.
I'm not sure, Geshla.
Okay, don't worry. Anyone else? Okay, Sister Christian.
Gishla, I'm just giving a try. So when Gishla says that to imagine a flower, so I'm using my conceptual mind to think of the flower. A conceptual mind is a mind that uses a generic image to get to its object or its form.
Okay, so the mind which uses what is that conceptual mind apprehending the flower, apprehending the form? Is that mind within the Christian Liu and within Neha, which uses meaning generality to get to its primary object, which apprehends the flower. That is conceptual mind which apprehends the form. Is what it's saying?
Yes.
Perfect. Very good. How many agree with Christian Liu and Neha? Raise hands. How many agree? Good. Are you good? Okay, now, so now we are breaking this down. The same concept that the flower is not the true referent of the label flower. Emptiness of flower being the true referent of the label flower. As the emptiness, according to the mantra, this is something in the monastic universities are being studied, debated for so long, like 2, 3, 4 years. Even after completing the course, people continue to debate on these topics to make more and more refined. So therefore, we can't expect to read just the 2 lines, we understand it. No, so therefore, I'm breaking this line into pieces. Once you understand each of these words well, then we combine together, put them together, and then see how it is to be read in the one complete form as one unit. Okay, so now what we are reading is the established as a self-characterized. So that part is yet to be done. Second part, adherent referent. When I say that I want a flower, when I say I want a flower, so Mr. Kabir Singh ji is with us today for offline. Okay, when I say I want a flower, then the Kabir Singh ji brings a flower, right? So this object, which you can see as of the red rose with the green leaves, you say that, okay, this is the object which I am referring to as a flower. So this object becomes the referent of the label flower. You're getting it? Now, adherent. This is this word adherent has a connotation of the affinity. So when when we use the word the flower, the label flower, so this label flower comes out from my mouth because of my thoughts. How many agree with me? It was thinking of. So sometimes there's totally, what you think and what the words that come out can be totally incoherent. You think of chocolate and the flower. Sometimes the flower comes out. You mean to say yes, and the words come out no, right? So these things are there. This is very what do you call it? Incoherent. There's incoherency between what you think and the words that come out. So otherwise, for normal people, when I say I want a flower, and the person brings a chocolate, then I said no. I told you I want a flower, right? Okay, so there that these words come out, they are actually dictated. These words, they come out dictated by your thoughts. How many agree with me? Raise hands. Okay, and how many will be they say there are two persons, both of them, but one expresses anger. Both express anger towards you in the form of very abusive words, and you come to learn that the second person is actually an actor actually practicing how to show, how to express the anger towards somebody. And the person A expression was the real expression of anger, right? So initially you didn't know that both the first one is a real anger, and the second one is just the acting, learning. And you are very upset with both of them. And later on, from your friend, you come to know that the first one's expression is real anger, and second one is not real anger. Second one is just acting to practice, how to express anger for his or her the movie production. So my question to you: once you know that the second one is just acting, which of the two persons you will feel really upset? Raise hands. Okay, Chandana.
The person who was really angry and not the one who was acting.
Okay, so Neha, you agree or you don't agree, Neha? You agree? Good. Okay. So how many agree with the Chandana and Neha? Raise hands. You are angry with the first one, not with the second one. Okay, is there anybody who likes to share with us why to the first one, why not the second one? So this is a very important point, So even the ordinary people can give the answer. But you, being a part of NMC2, your answer should be not just a simple answer, but it should coming from the workings of the mind. Okay, raise hands. Raise hands. Raise hands. Okay, Gayatri ji.
Keshila, the reason being that we know that it is the second person who is got angry with me. It is actually his mind is empty of anger.
Okay, in the first case, there's the words coming out. Words coming out, actually they are dictated by the anger, not by the, say, the pretense of the anger. They say in the case of the first person, the words are the labels. You're getting it? Labels. So these label, the harsh words as the labels, these are coming dictated by your thought processes of the anger. Anger is the thought process. Whereas in the second case, the same words are coming out. Same words are coming out. Why you are not angry is because that these are dictated by the thought process, which is not anger. Pretense of the anger. Pretense of anger is not anger. So with the anger, there's an aversion to you. That person wants to push you away from you. And nobody wants somebody to push you away. So that makes you feel upset. With the second case, it's not the anger, it's the pretense of the anger. The mechanism inside is a pretense of the anger. And the pretense of anger means, by very definition, it's not anger. So it's not pushing. So therefore, you don't feel upset. Okay, so in both cases, we see that these words, the labels come out. Labels represent the thought process of the person. Raise hands who agree with me. Labels represent the thought process of the person. Good. Good. Same. So, and in some cases, when you discover that although the person uses a very harsh words, but deep inside there's a warmth there, there's compassion there. It's simply because of, not, I wouldn't say harsh, or like rude words, or the little rough words. This is, his or her personality. Deep inside, the person is very, calm and good. And in fact, it once happened. This is, in fact, of course, I did not hear it myself, but I think it is one of my teachers who shared this. His Holiness the Dalai Lama's previous, one of the tutors, junior tutor, the late Kyabji, and in Debu Monastery, even in monasteries, things can change over time. But in those days, even through my time as well, I say even if you are His Holiness the Gandhari Rinpoche, oftentimes the monks would express their respect to you in ways of addressing you as Gen, not even Gen, Gen. Gen means the senior. That's it. It's senior. But in Drebong, this word, it means a lot. But in other places, Gen means just a senior, right? Senior. And in some other monasteries, we address with respect to some very senior and the learned, extremely learned, the enlightened masters. And they have different conventions, different words with which to address these masters. So one of them heard, a monk from Dribong addressing this highly respected teacher as Gen. No, the teacher as Gen. Means the junior tutor to His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And then the other monk informed that it's very strange that this monk, he addressed you as the Gen. And then Kyabji Trijamji, he was extreme, of course, really learned, really enlightened, and amazing. Just the whole conventions of different conventions, different monasteries, places, extremely learned, and he knows that everything is just be convention. And his conventions, how the same convention, they used by one group may not reflect the same weight, the gravity, how the same word is used in another community. So Kyabji Rinpoche, he told them, don't worry, in Japan, this is how they address. When they use this word again, it means a lot. There's like the gravity there. For in our monastery, it may not have this gravity the way you feel, but in their monastery, when you say again, there's a tremendous gravity there. Tremendous gravity there. So this is something. Say the same word. Say this word is a label, and this label is coming from the conceptual thought. And conceptual thought. So what kind of conceptual thought that you have? So Kyabji, he knows the different levels of the gravity underneath the words used by the different communities. He knows that because of this, for him there's no issue. Whereas for somebody else who does not know the differences, then for them is a complication. Then, they have been disrespectful to our teacher, and so for all these complications can arise. But somebody who's learned, who's so wise, for them this is not a complication at all. After all, the beings who are really learned in all these sophisticated, the nuances, the nuanced differences of the conventions, the corresponding adherent, the conceptual minds, so when they see that, then everything that is happening around the world, they're seeing like a small children's game. Yeah, for them. Whereas for us who don't see these things, even small things would disturb us so much. Even small things can make us so excited, and and in the pretext of Dhamma practice, and then you're actually doing so many unintentional, so many non-Dharma things. For example, like I say, oftentimes this is what I see. Say, for example, you go from non-Dharma to purely go into Dharma. Dharma meaning with the label Dharma. That, okay, now I become the monk, I become a nun, I'm in a monastery, I'm from this tradition, that tradition, so forth. You go there. And then you come with the second samsara. First samsara we already have. And then you go to, he is my principal teacher. This is my principal tradition. I'm from this tradition, I'm from that tradition. You are into second samsara. And very strong adherent that you are from this tradition, I'm from this tradition, we are from this. According to our tradition, this is not like this. According to your tradition, again, you are entering into another samsara, right? From the one samsara, you are supposed to go out, you enter into second samsara, second prison. This is where, so the labels, from the labels, you could see what is the underlying, the conceptual mind, which drives the person to use these labels. So this is very unnecessary. So we should be very careful, particularly learning the Narada Master's course. Let us try to get away. The first, let us not enter into the second samsara. Number one. Then number two, try to gradually run away from the main samsara. Okay, these are the efforts that we need to put in. Otherwise, unintentionally. Of course, if you don't learn these concepts, how can we possibly know, what's the correlation between your thoughts and the words, and what's going in your mind? So all these labels, there's corresponding, the conceptual thoughts which drive the labels to come out. So, what I'm saying is that I needed the flower, and the Kabir Singh Ji brought an object which is red, what today we call as the red rose, and with the leaves, and then he said, okay, this is what you want. I look at it, I would say yes, which means that object is the referent of the label flower. You got it? Referent label flower. Now I'm taking the second step. That when I use the word label flower, so what made me to have this label come out? Because of my conceptual thought, corresponding conceptual thought. So in other words, this referent is the referent not only of the label flower, but also the conceptual mind thinking of the flower. You're getting it? That is so important. This object, it is not only the referent of the label flower, but it's also the referent of the conceptual mind thinking of the flower. How many agree with me, raise hands? Very good. So now what we said is that the next is that this flower. Okay, now I'm taking this next step. This is so important. And even if you say while listening to me, you think that you're getting something, and after the class, if it disappears, don't worry. Say the things, clarity disappears, it becomes a little foggy. He said something, I thought I got it, but now, I got mixed up. Don't worry. So why I'm sharing all these things here is because that one, we are going a little going fast. I don't know, is it because I become more experienced in teaching and you are more intelligent as students? I don't know. What is the reason? I don't know. So it seems like we're going a little fast. So meanwhile, so later on, these concepts will come, particularly in the context of the Madhyamaka Avatar, rejecting Chittamata's philosophy. And for this, we have to know Chittamata's philosophy. So we're going to study more then. But today, while we do the eternal system, and since we're going a little ahead of time, so we can go through these in more details, particularly from, I would say that the next time when we go into these studies, you'll feel it much more easy. Okay, now the next point is which we discussed earlier in the earlier class, but I'm going to repeat it here as well. Say this. Okay, now I say I want a flower, which means I use a label. How many understood it? Raise hands. Good. So this label is that I want a flower. Just words come out. Words are not the flower. The words are the label flower. It's not the actual flower. Flower is something which we can visually see. But the word, when I say flower, you can orally, with your ear, you can hear it. You cannot see that. When I say I need a flower, you heard it. So this is sound, is not a flower. The label flower is not a flower, it's a sound. Okay. The second step is this label came out from my mouth because of the conceptual thought which dictated this word to come out. So that is conceptual thought which thinks of the flower. If you understand it, raise hands. Good. Next. So the conceptual mind is thinking of the flower, or the conceptual mind apprehending a flower. So that dictated that and the desire combined together made the word to come out, labels to come out. I want a flower to come out. Then the Kabirji brought this object, which is the red objects there with the green leaves there, which we refer to as the flower. Okay, he brought this, which means that this particular object, which ordinarily people refer to as flower, that is a referent of the label flower. Raise hands if you understood that. Good. And now the next. This object, is this the referent of the label flower? The answer is yes. So the next little complicated part is this object, is it the true referent? True, I'm adding the word true. True referent of the label flower. This object, is it the true referent of the label flower? Then say if you're not exposed to the Chittamata philosophy and philosophy in general, and the Madhyamaka philosophy and so forth, you will say, of course, if it's referent, it should be true referent. Okay, so this is a question. So we begin by saying, I'm not sure what you mean by two, what is the difference, the distinction that you made between, you're going to make between flower being a referent of the label flower and the flower being the true referent of the label flower. I want to learn what is the difference between these two things. Okay, how many of you are keen on this? Raise hand. I want to learn the difference between the flower being the referent of the label flower, flower being the true referent of the label being the flower. Raise hands. How many of you are keen to learn this? Okay, keen to learn this means you have to say reproduce the question. Anyone who likes to reproduce question, raise hands. Raise hands. Raise hands. Raise hands. Oh, no, no one. Okay, Petronella.
Geshe-la, as I understood it, what's the difference between the referent of the flower and the true referent of the flower?
Okay, how many agree with Venerable Petronella? Raise hands. Very good. Okay, what's the difference? So the answer is, okay, first, let us just learn this. And then next one is, how is this so? First one is, the flower is the referent of the label flower, but the flower is not the true referent of the label flower. First, let it learn like this. Flower is the referent of the label flower. Flower is not the true referent of the label flower. If you add the word true, then it is not. It is not the true referent of label flower. If you remove this true, the word true, just the reference to the flower, yes, the answer is the flower is the referent of the label flower. Okay, now next is how. How, when you add this word true, then the flower does not become the true referent of the label flower. Okay, how many of you understand that flower is the referent of the label flower? Raise hands. How many understand it? Or how many agree with this? Flower is the referent of the label flower. Okay. Is there anybody who likes to explain to us how is it that the flower is the referent of the label flower? So we're also going to learn how to articulate your thoughts. Laura? Lorella?
Shila, I believe that the flower is the referent of the label flower because if you ask someone for a flower, they give you a flower. If the words come out of your mouth, flower, I would like a flower, people know what that means and they're able to give you a flower.
Okay. So then sometimes, right? Sometimes I say I need a flower, and the person brings what? Leaves. So which means the leaves are also the reference of the label flower?
No,
Lorella.
they didn't understand.
What they brought, you said that look, we are learning the articulation also. We are learning the articulation. So the reason that you said, if applicable, it should be that object should be the reference of the label flower. So you said that when I said I want a flower, somebody brings a flower, right? Some brings a flower. So when I said I've written a flower, somebody brings the leaves, bunch of leaves. This is also possible.
Yes,
so it doesn't mean that a bunch of leaves is the reference of the label flower?
No.
Then how would I articulate it better? Anyone else?
Okay.
Okay, Bhavanila.
I'll try, Geshe-la. The flower is a reference of the label flower because conventionally, or according to convention, a group of people would agree that when you say flower, you will understand it to be the same thing.
Okay, so a group of people will agree that this is a flower.
Yes.
Okay. So when I say I want a flower, I use the word label. So okay, flower is the reference of the label flower. So first, label flower. This is something that should come, and then you bring the flower that should come, and then see whether it is the reference of the label flower. Label flower, Lorella put it so nicely that when I say I want a flower, so you're using the label flower, so that comes into play. Somebody brings a flower. That is the object of flower. So now that being the referent of the label flower. So combine together to make it very clear that this is the meaning of the flower being the referent of the label flower. So say that, so when you say that, I want a flower, and let's say that particularly somebody who is extremely precise, right? Extremely precise. Say somebody brings a flower, and then the if Lorella, I don't know how precise Lorella is, then she says, I want a flower, and then I give her a bunch of leaves. Are you happy? Not happy, Lorella?
Well, I probably would not be happy. No.
Oh, you will not be happy. Okay, so so when I give you a bunch of flowers or a flower, you're very happy. So say people who are very precise, you know, when you say I want a flower, you bring a flower and the person very happy, which means that that object that you brought is the reference of the label flower. If the person is not happy, which means you got the wrong referent. You're getting it? So this is easy. This is not difficult. That the flower is a reference of the label flower. How many of you know that? Raise hands. It's a matter of articulation. You know that the flower is a reference of the label flower. If you don't know that, then you cannot travel. You cannot travel. You cannot go for shopping. All this is going to be issue. You getting it? Okay. The next, that the flower is not a true reference of the label flower. True reference label flower. First, I'm going to give you an extremely gross understanding, and then we're going to analyze further to get some idea that, okay, flower is the reference of the flower, label flower, but it's not the true reference of label flower. Okay. Let's say let's say are you the, let's say the when did you get the label Tinsibetunla?
When I became
Which year?
ordained.
Which year?
2014.
2014. Okay. So the Tinsibetunla is the referent of the label Tinsibetunla.
Yeah.
But Tinsibetunla is not the true referent of the label Tinsibetunla, because that the label Tinsibetunla is not attached to the person Tinsibetunla at all times. There's a time before 2014, there was the same person there, but this label was not applicable to that person. So that label came arbitrarily. It did not come as a true referent. It come as it did not come to the person as attached since primordially. It came arbitrarily. So therefore, it is not the true referent. It's just an arbitrary label. So true has a connotation in opposition to the being arbitrary. This is also one connotation, right? So it is not a true reference label Petronella, because that the Petronella, when she was 5 years old, 10 years old, she was not referred to as Tenzi. Nobody, she will not understand that somebody is calling me as Tenzi Petronella. So today she is the reference of label Tenzi Petronella, but the fact that she's not a true reference label Petronella, there was a time when she was not called by this label. Okay. How many of you would, if this is how we understand the meaning of the true reference of the label Tenzi, then I understand that. Now I understand that Tenzi is not the true reference of label Tenzi. Raise hands. Okay. Now what about the flower? Tenzi is fine. Label is the names are fine. People's names are fine. Person's name is fine. But what about the flower? This flower, is it a true reference of label flower? Answer is no. But how no? This question. Anyone? Okay, Scott?
Point in time, it could have been called something else.
Say it again, Scott. Say it again.
At some point in time previously, flower could have been called something else before the convention existed to call it a flower?
So you're not sure, Scott? You're not sure.
Well,
You're not
I
sure
know
that
that.
you know that it was not called flower once upon a time.
Yes.
Oh, you existed at that time?
No, but
It
facts
must be
tell
some
you.
billion years ago.
Isn't it a
You must be
convention to call it flower? What happened before the convention to call it flower? What happened
Maybe it
then?
did not exist. It did not exist.
The flower didn't exist?
Yeah, before that, it may be Big Bang.
That's a little too far back for me.
4 billion years ago, no flower actually. 4 billion years ago, it was just they say the water was formed. Water was newly formed, no flower. Don't think the flower existed eternally. Okay, anyone else? Okay, David?
Flowers have existed before humans. So there was nobody there who could talk and give it any name.
Okay, how did you know that flower existed before humans?
I learned it in biology in school.
Sorry?
I learned it in school in biology.
So you're imitating somebody.
No, I'm learning.
And how did you know that that person was correct?
Well, belief in an authority.
How is that person authority?
Well, he was my teacher in biology. Must be authority.
Okay.
But also, there are different words in different languages. I mean, flower is not called flower in Swedish. In Hindi, it's pushpa, and many other languages are different words.
Say it again.
Flower is not called flower in all languages. Like in
Oh,
Hindi,
that's wise. That is something agreeable. That's agreeable. Let's say, for example, say metok. Metok is a Tibetan word for flower. So for Tibetans in the olden times, if nobody learned about, say, any other language, then the flower for them is very alien. It doesn't mean anything. And where nobody heard the Tibetan, nobody knows the Tibetan language, then the metok doesn't mean anything. Right? So this is brilliant. David, thank you so much, David. Okay, so the flower is not a true reference of the label flower. The flower is not a true reference of the label flower. Okay. Okay, how many agree with this now? Raise hands. Flower is not true reference of the label flower. Okay, good. Now the more complicated part. This part is easy. Now next part is that the three levels, that the emptiness of the substantial separateness of the flower and the valid cognition perceiving the flower. Number one, emptiness of externality of the flower. Then number three, what we studied here, emptiness of flower being the true reference of the label flower. These three, scholars differ in whether these three are identical, whether or not these three are identical. But the scholars agree, or the standard scholars, the learned scholars, they agree that these three are equally subtle. It's not that one is subtler than the other. They're equally subtle. And some scholars would say that they would argue that these are all identical. Not only that, they're equally subtle, they're also identical. Okay, so my question to you is, let's say that, okay, let's say that the person whose name is, let's say, Mr. A, and the person born, the child was born, the parents were struggling what names to give, and finally after 10 days they decided to call him Mr. A. Okay, and So from this, what we say is that, okay, Mr. A is not the true referent of true referent of, is empty of being a true referent of label A. How many agree with me? Raise hands. Not only you agree now, the challenging part is that not only you agree, the person who gave the label in the Tibetan tradition and also in the many of the Indian traditions is that names are given to the children by the masters, by the teachers, respectable teachers. So they go to the parents go to the teachers and the priests, teachers and so forth, and ask for the name, and they give you the name. And amongst the teachers, there can be Vaibhashika teachers, there can be Sautrantika teachers, Chittamadhura teachers, Madhyamaka teachers, non-Buddhist teachers also. Okay, let's say. And if the parents happen to go to a Sautrantika teacher, a teacher who follows the Sautrantika philosophy, then the teacher, do you agree with me? That the teacher knows that this boy is not intrinsically known as Mr. A, that this boy becomes the referent of the label Mr. A through my giving the name to him as a Mr. A. Even this teacher knows that, right? Presents. If that is the case, that that teacher who follows Sautrantika philosophy knows that this child is empty of being the true referent of label Mr. A. If you agree, it makes sense. Even this teacher knows that. Good. If that is the case, then the empty of being true referent of the label Mr. A is not subtle, it's very gross. Even Sautrantika teacher knows that. Even Vaibhashika teacher knows that. And that if somebody is a little sensible, even non-philosopher can also understand it. So non-philosopher, some elders says oftentimes even the names are given by the parents who may not be exposed to any philosophy. Parents give the mother give the mother give the label or the name Mr. A. And the mother knows that before I call this boy Mr. A, this boy was not the referent of the label A, Mr. A. Right? Even this mother or the father who does not have any exposure to philosophy, even these people, they know that, which means that it is not as subtle as emptiness or externality. Okay, how many of you are very convinced that there's nothing externally there? Or how many of you are not convinced? Okay, let's say how many of you are not convinced? I learned about emptiness externality, but I'm not convinced about the emptiness externality. Not convinced meaning that I don't have any understanding how things are empty of externality. I don't get any feeling out of this. I don't feel that. Makes sense? Okay. So which means that we don't know the emptiness of externality. But how many of you know that I will not be the reference of the label, she's a Christian or Cindy or Ajadumala and so forth. I will not be a referent of this particular label, this particular name, if somebody did not give me this name. Raise hands. I know that. Very good. So you know the emptiness of the object being true referent of the label, a Mr. or Miss A and B, so forth. But we don't know that the person is empty of externality, which means that these two are not equally subtle. One is very gross and the other one is subtle. You getting it? So the next question is how your understanding of the emptiness of true referent of the label, a label form, this is very gross. It does not go in par. It doesn't go in par with the emptiness externality in terms of the subtlety. It's way grosser than the emptiness externality. So, which means that our understanding is very gross. So, how can you say that this understanding has various levels? One which is very gross, which even the other schools can also understand it, but one which is very subtle, which only following someone who understands emptiness externality can understand it. So, how do you understand it? This is very important. Okay, is there anybody who likes to explain to us as to how emptiness of the object, how the emptiness of the form being true referent of the label form can be interpreted as equal in subtlety as the emptiness of externality. Anyone? Anyone? Okay. Jane, okay.
Might it have something to do with the fact that ultimately it is a conceptual mind which is attaching the label, just as the conceptual mind sees something
All
as
these labels, all these labels are attached to by the conceptual mind.
Yes.
Is this something which the Sautrantika understands? If they understand it, they understood they understood the emptiness of the true label, true referent of the label. They understood it. If they understood it, then it is not in par in subtlety with the emptiness of externality. Anyone else? NMC, NDC, NMC1, NDC 1, 2, 3. Okay, Mujangla.
Kishila, can I understand from the Sautantrika, right, when they say that the specific characterized object, right, it has the power from its own side to cast an aspect into the consciousness. So the object, because they exist on their own side, substantially exist, they have the power to say, I'm a flower. So they are able to affect the mind, and whoever see the flower, due to the power of the substantiality of the object, will then be able to call out the label flower. However, for my only school, right, from the object side, right, there's no externality, but the object actually is generated from the karmic imprint, right? So there's no power from the side of the object to affect the mind, so that whoever see the object will be able to label it flower.
Okay. What is the meaning? The true referent of the label flower. What do you mean by that?
That means a truly existent label that will always stick with the same object. Whoever see the
The
object, right,
truly existent label. What?
a truly existent label that from the start of the object will come out together with the object. Whoever see the particular
Okay, so
object,
this is not what Sautrantika masters accept, right? They reject it.
Yeah.
So if they reject it, they reject the true reference of the label flower. They say that the words, they don't come attached with the object right from the beginning.
Okay, then I got you wrong. Yeah.
Yes.
So,
okay,
thank you.
so this is something which we cannot guess. Those I'm expecting from NMC1, and it doesn't mean that NMC2 you're hopeless. This is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that NMC1, I must have discussed this with NMC1. NDC1, 2, 3, I'm not too sure. But NMC1, I must have discussed this. So this is what why I'm inviting them. And by the way, if you have some, they say the scholars like Geshes, Kempos, and so forth who have gone through these trainings well, you ask this question to them, and if possible, bring them in the class, what they say, right? And don't just ask a question and be like a messenger, right? You should be able to bring a counter questions to them when they give the answer. So most likely they'll give the answer something like what I gave you. You're getting it? And yet what we learned is that this answer is not satisfactory. Why? Answer that I gave you thus far, that the flower is a reference to the label flower, but the flower is not the true reference to the label flower. The answer that I gave you thus far, it is not a good answer. Okay, first, it's not something unique of Chittamatra. It is something which even they say South China School, Vaibhashika School, even all the non-Buddhist schools, even the ordinary people who have no exposure to philosophy, even they can understand it. So therefore, this is not a good understanding. So then what is a subtle representation which the Chittamatra, minimum Chittamatra can accept? Okay, let's say the Chittamatra can accept, and then the low schools cannot accept. So you have to give such an answer. So you have to say with whomever or to whomever you discuss these topics, ask these questions to, and then when the person gives the answer, try to say they have a rebuttal, go for a rebuttal with the counter questions, that you are not looking for just a simple answer, but an answer which is adequate or which is satisfactorily correct, which Chittamatra can accept, which the lower schools cannot accept. This is something which we need to think of. Okay. So it's more like a homework for all of us. And you can bring this up. You can I'm sure that many of you have your, let's say, places, centers. There are some teachers. Now the world of the internet, you can communicate through emails. Say, put this question and let somebody give the answer to, particularly learned people who are exposed to this tradition, and the answers that they give would make sense. And you should be able to throw rebuttal, do rebuttal with them, or the throwback counter questions, and then that you are happy that, okay, now here is an answer which Chittamatra will accept, which lower schools cannot accept. Okay, if this is something you can do, that will be helpful. Let us bring them, ask them, bring them in the education portal and in the class also. Okay, I'll not go through this for the time being. For time being, what we need to learn is two things. The flower is the referent of the label flower, but the flower is not the true referent of the label flower. Flower being empty of true referent of label flower, this is the emptiness according to Chittamatra. This is not acceptable by the schools. Don't forget it. Okay. And very interesting. Yesterday when I went down to Ahmedabad, I met one professor, and way back on the airplane, we were together. No, not on the airplane. At the airport, we were together, and then he is very interesting. He told me that you've been into Buddhist philosophy for so many years. You share with me some of your experiences. Interesting question. And I asked him, what do you mean by experiences? Then he said, whatever you have been through. So experiences doesn't mean realizations. You're getting it? So say this word realization in Tibetan is tokpa. Tokpa. We call high realization, topa tumbo. So the high realizations, topa tumbo. And so this is, of course, for us, particularly the following the Buddha's teachings, the Buddha advised us, even whatever realization, high level, low level, whatever you have, you're not to disclose them. You're not to disclose them. But in English, realization, I realize this, this is something which is more commonly used, not necessarily although the words are same. Realize, tokpa is the same, but in Tibetan the word has a tremendous gravity there. In English, it has its own meaning. It doesn't mean that Tibetan words are so rich and so the standard. No, this is not the connotation. So how the words are used, depending on the context, depending on the cultural, the background, we see that the meanings, the referent can be different. Some, although the same words, but the reference can be extremely deep. Some, the same words, the reference can be same, but there is a difference in terms of the to what extent the word pervades, and what kind of flavor, what kind of shade of meaning. There are nuances, many nuances there. So he said, what kind of experiences? And even experience, independent is nyam nyongwa, nyam nyong. Nyam nyong is little, it's it can be very sophisticatedly used with so much of gravity there in meaning, and otherwise in loose sense also it can be used. So he was asking for my experience. So what I said is that the and it's very genuine. It's not like, say the judging. So I said that one thing that I've experienced in my life after learning Buddhist philosophy is that everyone is equal. Everyone has the same potential. Same potential. Some people may in the during the school days, some people may not be doing so well in the mathematics, may not be doing so well in science, but everyone has the same potential. That potential to know physics, know mathematics, and so forth. These potentials is a matter of, say, these potentials wrapped by some the obstructions. So say the potential, because if it is wrapped by heavy obstructions, then to make it come out will take more time. And people, even the school teachers, professors, they do not really have the time. And many people, even they don't really understand this, that everybody has the same potential. This is what I said. And then he said something interesting. He said that he said that I don't accept this. I don't say that everybody's equal. This is what he said. And then I asked him, and he is very sincere. And he said that, say, people with age, people can have more information, but it doesn't mean that people have the same IQ. IQ is very different. And your full IQ will be displayed till around age 17. Age 17, then your full IQ will be displayed, and then your IQ will not improve, your information will improve. You will keep growing in your information, but you will not grow in your IQ. IQ will remain static, meaning that as a small child, you cannot display the full IQ, what you have. By 17, you will display the full. Then whatever X amount of IQ that you have demonstrated at age 17, from there, it will not improve. That is it. Then I told him, then he thought that I was misconceived, or I was confused between the two things, information and the IQ. He thought that this is it. So he said there's a difference. I said, yes, I fully agree with you. That people with a lot of information doesn't mean that the person is very intelligent. Although the person does require great degree of intelligence to acquire that amount of information, but it doesn't mean that intelligence is determined by how much information that person has. It doesn't determine that. But still, this what I call as intelligence, what you call as IQ, if these two are same, even intelligence can be sharpened, where the knowledge can be so less, but the intelligence can be sharpened. And I gave some examples. I said that some people who are not really doing good, were being very sincere, but in school, average, perhaps below average, in college also average or below average, and suddenly meeting with the Buddhist philosophy, and then where attention is given, and say the taught, the skill in thinking, although information is less, but the thinking, the capacity increases, the sharpness of thinking increases. And then when you ask very tricky question, the person can give the answer very randomly, spontaneously. Answer extremely intelligible answers are coming about, which even the other people who otherwise are considered as more intelligent than this person would, even those will feel the, oh wow, that's amazing. This person's already become so intelligent now. And then the person, that my friend, he acknowledged that. He said that, okay, this is the meaning of intelligence, the IQ, which means even the IQ can be increased. If this is your experience. So what he is saying was what he learned from standard books. Some authors, some researchers must have said it, and he's following that. He took them very seriously. So I said that generally speaking, what this book said is true, because people will not pay too much attention. If somebody does not demonstrate extraordinary the faculty from the childhood, in the early adult life, then people take you as the low, the mental faculty or the average mental faculty person. But when the less number of, so only when somebody gets this conviction that everybody's equal in having this the IQ equal in terms of in the form of the potential, not in the form of the manifestation. And but superficially, they can demonstrate different levels of IQ. That is not the true nature. It's the manifestation. So they're able to remove the mental dirt or obscurations, and the obscurations can be less, for some more. And these are also dependent on your previous karma. Say, for example, some people, say okay, let's say there's some people who create, say, the obstructions to somebody else's learning. And so there you accumulate so much negative karma where your intelligence, learning means to grow intelligence, grow your knowledge. So the potential will be obscured by this karma, which obscures somebody else from learning. And then somebody else, if you support the person so well, if you support the person, that the person can really grow so much in the intelligence, in the learning, and so forth. And then say not supporting that financially or moral support, whatever, you don't give the adequate support, although you have the potential to do it. If you don't do that, again, you are creating negative karma that the future lifetimes, your potential will not be manifested easily. So these are the karmic effects that we need to keep in mind. So this is in this life. And then the most important thing is, rather than blaming the previous karmas, the most important thing is in this life, we can activate these potentials in this life. For example, like come in contact with Narada Master's courses for like 5 years. In 5 years, people who committed for 5 years, not easily drop out easily. So just being consistent. It doesn't matter. You understand. You think that you don't understand anything. You don't follow anything. But actually, you are learning a lot. In the process, you are actually uncovering these mental dirt, obstructions, remove the obstructions one by one. There are so many layers of obstructions. So usually one example that I give is that, say you are at the plateau, say that you are, let's say that this is the plateau, and you are climbing like this, you're climbing like this. So the plateau is such that till you reach the point, you will not know whether you are close by or not close by. You will not know. So somebody else can help you. Somebody who has already been up there can, okay, now you're close, don't give up. For you, just at the base, or I think just next 10 steps from the plateau there, 10 steps down, and at the base, for you, there's no difference. Because in both cases, you're not seeing the top flat land. You're not seeing that. Somebody can tell you, somebody who's already been there can tell you that, okay, don't give up. Come, keep coming. keep coming. No, it's the same thing all the time. You will say this, but no, it's not the same. So therefore, to be consistent in climbing up, that is the greatest of the factor for you to unravel your intelligence, to increase your IQ. Okay. This is one thing. Then okay, so my point is that let us meet with those scholars, particularly those people who do have access to Geshes, Kempos, and these learned people. You ask them, and then you also come up with the questions to the answers that they give. Finally, you must, when you bring these things here for the education portal for this class, also make sure that you are, at least mentally, you feel comfortable that, okay, I have one answer which is acceptable to the Chittamantras, which is not, which the lower schools cannot understand, which means that this understanding is something unique to the Chittamantras, at least to Chittamatra, and then but not to lower schools, which means that your understanding of the meaning of the emptiness of the true reference of the label. So this has gone deeper. Okay, this is what you're going to do. And who's going to remind us about this later on? Later meaning, particularly during the Madhyamaka Avatar class, Acharya Chandrakirti's class, when dealing with the selflessness of phenomena, Chittamatra, discussing when rejecting the views of Chittamatra. So Chittamatra views have to be studied. At that point, we need somebody to remind us of this, because these are very important concepts. They are so important concepts. These concepts will really help us to increase your the IQ. Yes, Resents, we're going to remind us. Resents, volunteers. Okay, Gorilla and Parulji, then the Achikibala 3, and we need 4, 5. Okay, Benala and Raviji. Okay, totally we have 5. So let us make sure that 5 of you just put the date of today's date, the question, and make a note saying that this question is to be brought up in the class when we are doing this section on the Madhyamaka Avatara rejecting the Chittamatra philosophy, Chittamatra view. Okay, so this is what you make a note, remind a note for us to discuss later on. And meanwhile, the rest of us, particularly those of you who have access to the learned people, Geshes, Kempos, and so forth. So in fact, what happened was that during one of the meetings, I brought this up. Not a master's course here. We have, the difficulty getting teachers, because we need, they always like 2, 3 the backups, and also some teachers who can teach, not only one person. We need the people who are learned in philosophy and also in the come out with English. I brought this up to some people meaning in the Tibet House governing body. And the governing body, they gave several names, or this professor, that professor, and so forth. And which means that these people, they have no, even the governing body, they have no clue of this study at all. They think that somebody is simply having the label that the professor knows this concept. Okay, so I just gave up. Okay. Some Buddhist historians, there's a professor, very good in Buddhist historians. What is this? This means that these people, they do not really have the understanding of what this, the Narada Master's course is. The person must have thought it's just a regular, like information studies. It's not just information. It's about the IQ, increasing intelligence. Okay, so this is just for information. So therefore, the fact that we are studying these concepts is so precious, and particularly in your life, when we think more about, when we think more about the dharma in the form of the graded path, in the form of the four seals, or the Buddha's teachings in your life. We see the way aging, everybody's meaning of life. We said that after all, we have to leave everything behind. Your stature, your power, your wealth, your family, everything that you leave behind. We can't even take this body with us. And even this body becomes so frail. Once extremely beautiful, handsome, the complexion is so the complexion is extremely perfect, everything posture is so good. And then you reach the point what the Buddha did in the group of the Sangha. The Buddha picked up the flower and showed it to the Sangha, to the monks there, like this. Very beautiful flower like this. And the rest of the monks, they're wondering why the Buddha is showing this flower. It's just a flower. Then the Mahakashyap, Arhat Mahakashyap, the first heir to the Buddha Shakyamuni's teaching, the first heir, he started weeping. And others wondering why Mahakashyap was weeping. Because Mahakashyap understood what the Buddha was doing. Buddha was just showing this flower like this. And the other monks, they thought that what is the Buddha doing? Just showing the flower there. And the Venerable Mahakashyap was crying because he knows that just as a flower, however beautiful it is, it'll droop one day. This is reality. Likewise, even the Tathagata, who's so alive now, benefiting so many people, one day, even the Tathagata will leave the world. This is indication. So Mahakashyap started to weep. So the point is that thinking in these lines, then we come to see that the life is not just that you die and this is the end of you. No. That brain and the mind relationship, with the brain-mind relationship, you explore more, you come to see that, to say that mind is the brain. This extremely overly simplistic conclusion, which is totally so trivial and so baseless. And if you explore deeper, you're left with many questions, which simply by working on the brains cannot be adequately answered. And also, experientially speaking, say as you grow older, and if you learn how to observe your mind so well, workings of the mind, from there you can see that the intricacies of the workings of the mind is so profound that today people who talk about the mind in general related to neuroscience is so gross, how they say the mind and the subtle mind, gross and subtle mind, how it affects the physiology. And even for physiology, we see that before that, very subtle energies. These are totally so remote away from neuroscience today. So it is like, for example, me talking about, say, the Niels Bohr's quantum mechanics. Oh, what he said, it doesn't make any sense. Quantum mechanics will laugh at me because I'm not the legitimate person to see that quantum mechanics is stupid or is nothing, because my knowledge of quantum mechanics is very shallow. So therefore, if you are to really speak on quantum mechanics to say that, oh, this is profound, this is not profound, this is very shallow, I should be very thorough with quantum mechanics. Likewise, to say that there is no mind other than brain, you should be very thorough in the discipline of the mind, how the mind is explained. Only if you are very thorough with this to see the nuances of the workings of the mind, particularly subtle minds, and then if you say that, like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, he's so thorough with all these. If he says that there's no mind different from the brain, then that's it. Because that he's the authority. He has expertise on this area. Whereas you don't have the expertise in this area, how can you speak on this area? So likewise, when the governing body members, they suggest, oh, don't worry, we have good professors. I can recommend this professor who did history in Buddhist philosophy. What is this? So this is not how it works. So only those people who are expert in this area, that person rejects or accept, that makes sense. You're not expert in this area. In fact, I can people who are sick, I can recommend some medicines and so forth, but I'm not expert in this area. When the really experts come, I have to hand the person over to the expert. So for small things like, oh, you have a temporary headache, okay, go for paracetamol, say like 2, 3, 4 days, continuous headache, paracetamol. No. This is where I'm going wrong. I'm handling something which I'm not expert in. So the point is that we really need to learn these things. So in other words, what I'm saying is that there are so many sophistications, intricacies of the workings of the mind, and these we will learn. After learning the basic framework from the text, then you observe it inside. You take these as keys, what you learned from the sophisticated text as keys, and then you use it to see what your mind behaves. Say, for example, we talk about enlightenment within Buddhahood within a single lifetime. Who studies nothing, we have practice. What practice? Right? Say, how manage your mind. Say, fall asleep. You have a sleep. When you have a sleep, how many of us have the control of your mind? So when you sleep, we do know that there's a mind there. We dream. And when you wake up, you are aware of a dream sometimes. We are aware of our mental disturbance. We are aware of our mental happiness in the dreams. We are aware of this when we wake up. But how many of us have the capacity to maneuver our dreams? Don't say that, yes, once in a while I have the rabbit, I say, what is that? REM sleep, vivid dreams. It's once in a while. Control doesn't mean once in a while. Anytime you like to have this dream, that dream, so forth, you should be able to do that. How many of you have this control? If you don't have the control of the mind during the sleep, how can you think of controlling the mind when the mind goes through the dying process? So Tantra, high-level practices, they're about managing your mind at such level. So for that, we need to have a proper training to for example, say the pilots. The pilots who drive the aeroplanes. First, they have to go through the simulation practice. So there are some pilots here also. Yeah. So you have to go through simulation practice. Simulation means that you don't get into the real aeroplane. You don't go into the real aeroplane. So there's a simulator practice. You have to do that. And then on that basis, and then you can get into the real aeroplane. So therefore, before we go into this tantra and so forth, just observe this mind, and you will see that there are so many things that we can learn, and then it's so precious, particularly what we're learning here. This is so precious, we don't really discuss these topics in otherwise. And then without this, how can you improve the IQ of your mind? Without this, how can you have the capacity to see the workings of the mind when your mind falls into a different state of the subtlety, like the dream, deep sleep, then at the dying process. Within dying process, there are different levels, and finally the clear-led mind. How can we have the control over these if you don't do the simulation practice way before that? So for that matter, these learnings are so precious. So if at all something is there for us that we can take to the next life, not our body, not our wealth, not our stature, not our power, not our family, but your intelligence, your good heart, and your peace of mind, the basis for your peace of mind, basis for your happiness, which is the wisdom, intelligence, and a compassion. The profound compassion, not just compassion in general, very profound compassion because of the practice of the bodhicitta. So these are the things and you can take to your next life. So for which we have to practice it now. Nobody can give you compassion. Nobody can give you the wisdom of emptiness. These are things that we have to cultivate it ourselves. Okay, good. Okay, so the next, okay, so next line, we'll read the next line, then we'll stop here. The composite phenomena, if we read this, I think we read it all. We read it all. We read it all. This one also we read before, but I'll read it again. Both the subtle surface of person and of the surface of phenomena are posited as emptiness. So I told you earlier that these positions, the scholars, they differ. It doesn't matter. So because we are studying this text, we hold what the author, Venerable Kunja Jingmambo, what he said. And then at least we should have some facts meaning the facts according to some standard books and standard authors. At least that we should have something like this. Don't just mix up everything. Both the subtle surface of person and phenomena, both the subtle surface of person and surface of phenomena are posited as emptiness. Whereas Venerable Panchasonam Thapa, the author, whose text which my monastery uses, they does not agree that the subtle surface of person is the emptiness. It's not emptiness. But given that we are studying this text, but we should have some, some solid, say the solid grounds to hold on to. So we will hold on to the Venerable Kunja Jingmambo's text. And then if you know that other versions also, don't mix them, without mixing them up, you should, okay, this is Venerable, according to Venerable Kunja Jingmambo, the emptiness of the surfaces of not only phenomena, but also the person. Surface of person is posited as emptiness. But according to Venerable Panchasonam Thapa, surfaces of person, according to Chittamatra, is not considered as posited as emptiness. Okay, if you can make this distinction, this is the best. If not, at least have something to hold on to. Given that we are studying Venerable Kunja Jingmambo, this is in line with Drepung Gomang Monastery's text. So you will stick to this. But if you have the ability to remember all these different the versions, that's the best. Okay, the second last line: emptiness may not necessarily be either of the two subtle surfacenesses, as the truth of cessation and nirvana as well are positive emptiness. So this line, according to the Venerable Panchasonam Thapa, this is accepted according to Prasangika, not according to Chittamatra. But according to Venerable Kunja Jingmambo, he applies this to Chittamatra also. So it's fine. We'll stick to this. And don't just go into, oh, this is my tradition, this is your tradition. No, I'm from the Venerable Panchasonam Thapa's the tradition. But I simply dislike saying that I'm from this tradition, that tradition. This is where we are putting ourselves into another prison. Prison of samsara. Okay. The next, composite phenomena. Okay, this is important. Now this is a little bit easier. Say for Chittamatrans, what we say is that the flower as a composite phenomena are asserted as substantially one with the valid cognition apprehending them. Your eye consciousness as a valid cognition perceiving the flower, and the flower is the object. So these two are substantially one, because both are substance, both are made of substance, and they are entity-wise one plus made of substance. These two are substantially one. Not only entity-wise one, but substantially one. These are nature-wise one nature, one substance, and one entity. These two are substantially one. Okay. Substantial one plus substantially, the word entity-wise one, substantial one. While non-composite phenomena such as the non-composite space or absence of tiger, non-composite phenomena such as absence of tiger or the non-composite space are viewed as same entity with respect to valid cognition apprehending them, but they are not same substantial one. These two are not substantial one, because for two things to be substantial one, both should exist substantially. So non-composite phenomena, given that they don't exist substantially, so they cannot be said as substantial one with the valid cognition apprehending them. So these two can be entity-wise one, not substantially one. Okay, so next is the objects abandoned by the path. So the objects of the path, what the path should be meditated. What are the objects? The meditation should be the paths should be meditated on. It's already discussed. Now is about discuss in what sense that the those who seek personal liberation and those who seek Buddhahood. Those who seek personal liberation, they focus on the meditate on they use the 16 aspects of the Four Noble Truths as the object of meditation, and then alongside with the more focus on the selflessness of person. And of course, those with personal liberation, they should have the renunciation. So renunciation, in a Chinese system, there's tremendous emphasis on the cognitive side. Finally, the liberating path is only the cognitive aspect of the mind. It's not the affective side of the mind. But when the emphasis is made on the cognitive side of the mind, it doesn't mean that the affective side is not important. It's very important. Renunciation, which is the affective side of the mind, renunciation, without renunciation, no matter how refined your meditation of the emptiness is, or meditation of selfless person is, it will not liberate you from samsara. So renunciation must be the driving force to make this wisdom of the selflessness of person to cut through samsara to get to the nirvana. This is what is required. Likewise, for the bodhisattvas, those who seek liberation for all the beings, those who seek Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings, for them, while there's a tremendous emphasis on the wisdom of the selflessness of phenomena, but the accompanying or the driving force, which is the effective side of the mind, the bodhicitta, grounded on the renunciation. So these two must be required. Bodhicitta and renunciation required for the bodhisattva, in order for this wisdom of the surface of phenomena to be effective, to cut the cognitive obscurations to get to Buddhahood. Okay, so these are the things that we need to remember. And then also that okay, so this is the next part, objects to be abandoned by the paths. So by meditating on these two things, the 16 aspects of the Four Noble Truths, with the focus on the selfless of person, on the one hand, and for the bodhisattvas, with the focus on the selfless of phenomena, with these meditations, driven by the renunciation and the bodhicitta. So what kind of mental defilements are removed? So this next topic, objects to be abandoned by the paths. So with these practices, what are the kind of mental defilements are removed so that the Buddha nature inside becomes manifest? So this is going to be the next topic. We'll stop here. And what we're studying in Chittamatra, there are many things which are parallel between what we study in Chittamatra with the Madhyamikas. So there are things which we study here to be taken. And those things which are so unique of Chittamatra, I'll make it a point to identify them. Otherwise, they are to be taken to Madhyamikas. And also that the topics which are the exclusively taught, exclusively in a Madhyamika, more precisely Prasanga Madhyamika, which you don't find in Chittamatra. So these are the indications that these are unique things, and where topics which are not covered, you have to bring them from Chittamatra and some from South Trandika School as well. Good. We stop here.
Additional dedication prayers. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you're the source of all happiness and good. All-powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until Sansara ends. Just as the brave Manjushri and Samantabhadra too realize things as they are, also I dedicate all these merits in the best way that I may follow their perfect example. I dedicate all these roots of virtue with the dedication praised as the best by all the Buddhas who appeared in the 3 times, so that I might perform the noble Bodhisattva's deeds. Janchu Sencho Rinpoche Ma Ke Panam Ke Gyurjik Ke Panyam Pa Me Payang Gong Ne Gong Du Pelva Shok. May the Supreme Bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase forevermore. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all beings without exception into that enlightened state. I dedicate the merit thus gathered towards the realization of the deeds and the prayers of all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 3 times, and to the upholding of the Dharma of teaching and realization. May I in all lives, through the force of this merit, never separate from the 4 wheels of Mahayana vehicle and accomplish all the stages of the path, renunciation, bodhicitta, perfect view, and the 2 stages. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find new hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from the illness, and may every disease in the world never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting one another. By the merits I have accumulated, may every single being abandon all forms of wrongdoing and perpetually engage in virtue. May they never be parted from the mind of bodhicitta, and may they always engage in the bodhisattva's conduct. May they be cared for by the Buddhas and relinquish the actions of devils. Having dispelled all inner and outer obstacles and downfalls, such as poverty, despair, oppression, cruelty, epidemics, and natural disasters due to environmental degradation, may all beings forever enjoy the glory of peace and happiness. In all my lives, never separated from perfect gurus, may I enjoy the magnificent Dharma. By completing the qualities of the stages and paths, may I quickly attain the state of a Vajradhara. Tayata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasangate Bodhi Swaha Tayata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasangate Bodhi Swaha Tayata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhi Swaha. Thank you, Geshe-la. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Geshe-la. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Geshe-la. Thank you to that house tonight.
Thank you, Kala. Dharma.
Thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you in the next
Thank
class.
you.
Thank you. Have a pleasant evening.